All right, so we're on live. Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Yes, wow. The volume is which one? The middle one right here?
This what?
I think I found it.
Okay.
This the volume? Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I'll turn that down.
Sound speed, roll camera,
Can you hear that?
speed, scene one, take one. Marketing. And action. Hi, I'm Ed, the host of Savannah on Film, and we explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry in related fields. You can find us here on WRUU LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Sounds, community radio with global soul.
All right, 10 seconds. Hello, everyone. Hello, the world. This is your host, Ed Ciucevich of Savannah on Film. And today I have an extremely special guest here today.
Ice cream scooper.
An ice cream scooper. See, you can start anywhere and make it in the film industry. I have been awaiting this interview for a long time here, and let's get started like we always do. But first, the gentleman is Stratton Leopold.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for being here with us.
Hi, Cheryl.
A shout out to my wife there. Thank you very much. Can I call you Stratton?
Please, of course.
Okay. I should call you Mr. Savannah.
No.
No, don't do that. No, don't do that. Okay. But let me just give everybody a little background, like they don't know, but I'm sure they do. Let me open the show and tell you that welcome to Savannah on Film. I'm your host, Ed Ciucevich, and our purpose here is to explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry in related fields. We are here on WRUU 107.5 LP, Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. And Stratton Leopold, he has been in the film industry for more than 40 years, producing major high-budget motion pictures. He's been involved in nearly 60 film and television
Probably, yes.
credits.
It's hard to believe.
You stop counting.
Yeah.
All this in your 20s. That's amazing.
Yeah, really, I know it.
You-
It's the ice cream that keeps you young.
It's the ice cream that keeps you young. And you have been everything from an executive producer to casting director and even an actor. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's see. Stratton has also served as an executive vice president. Let's try that again. Live radio. An executive vice president at Paramount Pictures.
Correct.
Stratton launched his film career in 1974 as a location casting director and location manager for low-budget movies. Yet he is best known for his work as a producer or executive producer of several high-budget, commercially successful films, many that I've enjoyed myself in theaters. He has worked with many of the industry's iconic directors over the past 20 years, including Taylor Hackford, Bound by Honor from 1993, and Parker from 2013. Simon West, The General's Daughter, 1999, and that was filmed here, correct?
Partially here, yes.
Partially here. And John Travolta?
Yep,
Started
Travolta, James Cromwell, Timmy Hutton.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. You worked with Phil Alden Robinson, The Sum of All Fears, 2002. Very much enjoyed that film.
I enjoyed it as well. It's a tough film to make, but
How so? Why was it tough?
prep time. We were prepping the movie in Montreal, and the studio, this is a Paramount, the studio was unhappy with the cost of the film, and on a film that size, normally you have 4, 5, 6 months prep.
Okay.
We were about 10 weeks out from shooting, and the word came back from the studio, stop prep. So, okay, we stopped prep. So we had how many from Los Angeles? Probably maybe 8 or 10 people from LA. So I said, well, should we come on back? No, stay there. So we sat there for at least a couple of weeks, if not more, and got rid of the crew with the fear that we couldn't get them back. And the word came from the studio then, a few weeks later, go, start. And we said, okay, how much prep time do we have? The same as before. So quite literally, I remember telling James Cromwell in the presidential bunker set, don't touch that wall, pointing to a wall, because the paint's wet. The good news is we did it. We worked hard. We made it. We filmed on the schedule they wanted. The bad news is we did it. We made it on the schedule because then they realized they could cut prep and still make it work. But it was difficult from that standpoint. But it's probably of many of the films I've done, I've enjoyed that picture as a movie.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I remember watching it in theaters, and I was blown away by it. I guess I shouldn't say that.
Well,
knowing the plot of the film.
We shot it in the winter of 2000, and we finished probably, I think, in spring of 2001. And obviously, we know what happened on 9/11. Right. We were testing the movie. On a studio level, we test the pictures with audiences. We were testing it after 9/11. And it was interesting. We didn't know, should we hold the release? Should we release? What to do? Part of what I do in the testing process is I watch the audience a lot. And after it, we have focus groups, what have you. And those of you out there who know the plot line, it's from a Tom Clancy novel, and there's a nuclear exchange at the Super Bowl. Anyway, the audience, you saw them at every screening. When the bomb was in play, you see them inching forward in their seats, inching forward, knowing, oh, it's not going to go off. Then when it does, you see just a collective falling back in their chairs. And this happened every time because they didn't believe it would happen.
I was kind of in the same boat.
Really?
Yeah. I when I watched it, and I was like, is it really going to go off? Because if I remember, they had put some of the explosives in like a vending machine.
A cigarette machine. There's a commentary, a comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was with Ben Affleck.
It was.
He was taking over for Harrison Ford, is that
Yes,
correct?
it's correct. We actually had gone out to Harrison. Harrison chose to do the submarine picture instead.
Okay.
I've forgotten the number, 541, whatever it was. because we had written for Harrison, and in fact had a writer sitting in New York with Harrison when he chose not to do it. So then we went exactly the opposite way with a young entry-level character, which Ben played.
Yeah, and went on to even more wonderful things too. Let's see, you worked with John Woo, who in 2003 Paycheck, Tears of the Sun. That was
that one. No, that picture. Well, I mean, we scouted for the picture.
You scouted for it,
but we never made the picture. The picture that got made was a different studio. They bought the title.
Ouch.
Yeah, because the one that I've known John now probably close to 20 years. And we scouted the world. What Tears of the Sun, the one we were doing, it was what we call a lifeboat picture. It was a group of Americans in the jungle at the largest gold mine in the world, which exists in Brazil, open pit mine. So we were down in Brazil, we were in Australia, we were all over scouting for it. And at the end of the day, we didn't get cast. It was at Fox. So we actually were prepping in Australia, in Cairns, Australia, up north, and the studio said no to the picture, and then sold the title after that.
Because I think Spielberg picked that.
Yeah.
They made a powerful film with that, and that was in 2003. You worked with one of my favorite franchises of all time. You worked with J.J. Abrams on Mission Impossible 3, 2006. And one of the actors I admire, going through Georgia Film Academy, that I'm a graduate of, and Tom Cruise. I've always loved his movies. I love not just the aspect that he's an actor and he does his stunts, but that he's a businessman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he is
totally focused.
Really. What can you say about Tom Cruise and your experience working?
Tom's a workaholic. I mean, he comes to work, he's ready, he's prepared for everything, whether it's a dialogue scene or stunts. I mean, he's completely focused with work, expects everyone to be as well, which is understandable.
Right.
Scares the heck out of you with the stunts, though, because he does do his stunts.
And the insurance company, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, but he's also one of the producers, so you can't, you can... The part that frightened me the most in that film, there's a sequence where, in the fiction of the picture, he jumps out of a building, parachutes down. Anyway, we were in Shanghai on the top of a 70-odd story building. We're up there, and Tom says, "I want to jump off this building." I'm saying, "No." What do you mean, no? I said, "We can't get the equipment up here to cable you." We will safety him. I said, "We can't get it up here." A helicopter. I said, "No, can't get it up here. We can't do the real building." He literally was going to base jump off the building. And not too long before, someone had died base jumping off of a similar building. But we shot that sequence in pieces. We shot most of it in Los Angeles, actually. The initial aspect of that jump was probably 7 or 8 stories, which Tom did 11 times. We cabled him.
He's a machine, isn't he?
He is. But the part that frightened me the most was at the very end of the sequence, when you see the film. Well, something else about the film we'll talk about in a second.
Sure.
At the very end of the sequence, Tom falls down into the street, and a semi is coming at him, which is jackknifed, and goes over him. That's what's in the script, and that's what we shot. Now, we shot that on Lower 6th Street in Los Angeles. We dressed it for China. So it was all the set dressing and extras were Chinese. So we, and the semi, this was Friday night around 2 a.m. So we did a rehearsal. The semi is designed to jackknife. The back wheels you can steer. So he started we did on the rehearsal about 3 blocks away maybe. And when he was when he came to the camera, he was probably going about 35 miles an hour. We undercranked. We made it appear to be faster with the camera.
Okay.
So we did it with a stuntman. We rehearsed it. We dropped him from maybe 9-10 feet onto the pavement, which we padded. So we did it with a stuntman. We drop him. He then has to find where the open part is, where the trailer, so he can lie down. It goes over him. So we rehearsed it. Okay, Timing's right. Let's shoot it. Tom says, I'm doing it. I'm saying, Tom, no, it's a semi. I'm doing it. Tom, he could have a blowout, a flat tire, and you're dead. I'm doing it. Tom, the guy could have a heart attack, and you're dead. I'm doing it. And he did it 3 times.
Wow.
I could see the headlines, my career flashing before my eyes. I killed Tom Cruise.
Oh gosh.
But anyway, Tom just he does it. He thrives on that.
And he's still doing it, which is amazing.
And he's good at it.
He's very good.
The driving stuff, the bike stuff, he's good at all of it.
The last film, Fallout.
Yeah.
You know, that opening sequence had me completely fooled. I'm like, it's such great movie magic that he creates and those that work with him. You worked in some other films, and gosh, I could probably talk with you all day about Mission Impossible. I just love that so much.
It was a blast. I mean, we were all over the world.
Yeah. You've worked in. Speaking of working all over the world, besides the U.S., you've also worked in Canada, England, Spain, Italy, Central America, the Philippines, Australia, China. That must have been fun. China.
Actually, yeah. The only bad thing about it is the flight. I mean, it's well, like Australia, same thing. It's 16 hours from L.A. And when you're traveling with a director like John Woo, John's a smoker.
Oh gosh.
And you can see the tension mounting because you're 16 hours in a plane.
Oh my gosh.
And you try to sleep for 8 hours if you can, and you can only have 8 more to go. But I enjoyed China. I enjoyed it there.
Yeah. Let's see. You are also a member of the Directors Guild of America, Producers Guild of America. You've cured cancer. No, wait a minute. That's coming soon. No. And when you're not making a movie, you can find, as a lot of people know, Stratton here in his hometown of Savannah, Georgia. Most often behind the counter at Leopold's Ice Cream.
Yeah, I enjoy that. I mean, I grew up in that, so that's my background.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, this popular ice cream parlor, you're a Greek immigrant.
My parents came from Greece.
Yes, your father Peter and your 2 uncles George and Basil.
Yep.
And it was founded in 1919.
Correct.
So we're coming up on 100 years.
Yeah, a few months. Yeah, next year.
That's amazing. That's an amazing achievement.
We have to do something special. I'm not sure what yet, but we will.
Well, let us know.
Yeah.
We would love to be part of that. Stratton has incorporated many of the original fixtures from your father's store into the current location that's on Broughton Street.
The original store we still have. It's over on Gwinnett and Habersham, which we will redo as a store. But I moved the soda fountain from 1930. That's over on Broughton Street at the flagship store. And the back bar is there, and telephone booth, things like that we have moved that are not going to be moved back. It's a big deal to move a soda fountain.
I imagine it is.
Yeah.
And, so how has business changed over that time? You grew up in it, so I know back in 2004 you really had a push to get back into it, and
it's interesting. It's changed from we're very particular as to sources of our ingredients for ice cream. My father taught me, for instance, the heavy cream we use for making ice cream. I would taste the cream by itself because he had a theory what the cows ate. For instance, if the cows ate too much onion weed, it would translate into the cream. So
that's very forward thinking.
For someone way back then, yeah. Back in those days, there are a number of small dairies in the region. The region being from Indiana to Louisiana, all in there, that we could source cream from. They're all gone. They've been bought by large companies that have really not much interest in selling to a small ice cream operation. So we've had to go further out. And we've been very successful with sourcing wonderful cream. It becomes a transportation. It becomes moving it from far-flung places to Savannah.
Okay. Wow.
But still, we're fortunate enough. Our pecans, or pecans, as Paula Dean tells me to say, our pecans come from 80 miles away. They're roasted for us. We get as much as we can locally. So,
how was it to move stuff like that before refrigeration? really kicked in?
I can remember as a child, I believe it was for Freeman Jelks Sr., who we would ship to him in Connecticut in the summer. And I remember as a child going with my father to the old train station, the one that's no longer there, where I-16 comes in. And Railway Express Agency, we had these, they're probably, of course I was little, but they're probably about 4 or 5 feet high, canvas bags with leather straps on top that were lined with kapok. Kapok is an insulative material. In the middle was a stainless steel container. So what you would do is put probably, I can't remember what, maybe a half a gallon of ice cream in there with some dry ice, seal it, close the leather straps, take it in the truck to the train station, and it would be transported to, in this case, it was Connecticut. But shipping now, of course, is obviously, because we do ship now quite a bit, but it's all with styrofoam containers and dry ice and FedEx or UPS.
Has to be there overnight, right?
Yeah,
I've got to have my Leopold's ice cream.
There you go.
And let's see. We'll come back to some more about Leopold's in a second. Let's just chat a little bit more about your film career and some questions I really love to ask you here that I know my audience would find great interest in. Well, first off, you have a film from it was filmed in 2015 that you were part of, and in 2017, the movie's called Jasmine.
Right.
And it was in the Hoboken International Film Festival and Madrid International Film Festival. It was it got a festival award, and then in the International Film Festival of World Cinema in Nice, that would be France, got the jury award. So what can you tell us about
Jasmine? It's an interesting picture. It's a dear friend wrote and directed it. I helped produce it. It was Dax Phelan is his name. Dax is primarily a writer, but he's a fine director as well. He shot it in Hong Kong.
Wow.
We shot there for it's not a very high budget picture, but with his talent, both in the writing and in the direction, he made it work. It's a thriller. It does work. So Dax has been writing. In fact, he's written a number of screenplays for me, or with me, I should say. So we will work together more.
Okay. General's Daughter. What was that experience like in 1999? What was that?
It was
Travolta, another actor that I really admire.
John's great. John loves people and loves food. So wherever we were, we filmed obviously in Savannah, and we filmed in Los Angeles on that too. And we always had wonderful meals, wonderful food constantly around. It was great. In fact, I saw John when he was here recently. He was here shooting. It was a good experience. James Woods is in it, who's probably one of the brightest human beings I've ever met. He's MIT guy, he's just a very smart guy. Tim Hutton, I mentioned, is in it. I mean, it's just it was a good experience, a very good experience. And Simon did a great job directing it.
Okay. I wanted to ask you this, and maybe I've kind of said this, but I'll say it again. I think it's probably safe to say that you're one of the biggest names in the industry in relation to Savannah, especially.
Or in relation to ice cream.
In relation to ice cream also. But dare I say you're a Savannah icon. I would call you a Savannah icon. You are ever much a very important part of this city and the makeup of Savannah. And bringing film to Savannah, I mean, you really blazed a trail, I think, for a lot of people.
I don't know about that. Thank you. I don't know.
How did you go from being that ordinary kid to just, jumping in the film? I mean, I know it took time.
It took time.
For those that are, like, starting out in the industry, what advice, I guess, is what I'm getting at, would you give?
I was really fortunate. I was helped a lot on the way up. In fact, I met with an actor today. We were talking about this. And the advice really, be it for on camera or producing or whatever, is build a resume. And you can do that to a degree in Savannah. You can do it in Atlanta, in the different markets too. I used to, before Savannah got busier like it's getting busy now.
Yes, it's very
Before
busy.
that, I would say go to Atlanta. Don't go straight to LA because the competition is massive, especially for on camera, especially for actors. Build a resume, get a reel together, then jump in, or not. It depends on what you're after. I would say the main thing is build a resume, build the contacts. It is a business like many businesses are. It's a business of contacts. It's a business of networking. I was so fortunate. I spent about 12 years in Atlanta, and I was so fortunate then. It was the first iteration of Atlanta of Georgia being popular without the film credit back then. And the thing about that is this: an executive at a studio can be on location, and you can walk up to them and say, "Hello, my name is," and I'm going to call you when I come to LA. I tell, in fact, when I've spoken both here at SCAD and at USC in California and various places, I tell the students, if I'm in LA, like when I was an executive, you would not be able to speak to me. Not because I may not want it. There are people designed to keep you away. Once you're on location, it's easier. You can walk up to the head of a studio, and I've done it, but back when I was starting out. I've walked up to the head of Universal, actually, Tom Mount was head of Universal, and just said, "You're from North Carolina, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to call you. I'm from Savannah." And you just do that, and build up the contacts. Contacts are vital.
We have a lot of in the industry here. Savannah Film has a lot of mixers, industry mixers, and that's a good place, wouldn't you say, to meet people, to give them your business card and say, "Hey, here's my specialty. This is."
Yeah, it is, but you want the people who are not from here.
Okay.
You want the ones from LA.
Okay.
And it's great to be known here, but the jobs are not going to come. They may come from here, but the jobs at a certain level are coming from Los Angeles.
What are your ideas of growing the industry in Savannah? I know you do a lot to promote Savannah as a destination for film. What are some of your ideas? Maybe infrastructure or whatever you think.
Well, infrastructure. We've talked about studios now, and there is at Film Factory there is that there's some smaller spaces, and that's probably the largest space here. And Scott's done a good job with it. But to have 40-foot ceilings, to have a real studio, for a major picture, we need space. We need space to park 30 tractor trailers. We need space to do all that. To have that would help us. Is it the end all? No. We come here for location. But to have that for cover sets, yeah, that would be great to have it. I think indigenous film, now I'm in the middle of, I have two books of option. I'll talk about that later maybe. And to have indigenous investment, indigenous filmmakers, films being financed and produced here, that would be the end all. That would be wonderful to have that. And I've been successful to a degree with that. That it's difficult because the investment community typically does not think of film or television, whatever, as an investment. However, there is a risk. Obviously, there's an inherent risk, as there is in anything, in restaurants, whatever, hotels. Now, but to me, what has happened in the industry, as you know, in the last, especially 5 years, 10 years, there's so many avenues now for distribution of the product, of the film, that the downside risk is not eliminated, never is, but it's mitigated to a very great degree because you can get the project out there.
Yeah, and having all these different avenues. I mean, a person now can pull out their cell phone and make a movie. Essentially, it may not be
well, in fact,
Hollywood standard, but
it's done.
It's done. Yeah, it's been done.
An actor friend of mine, James Cromwell, Jamie, recently he was judging. He was judging at a film festival. Everything shot entirely on iPhones.
Amazing.
So it's done.
Yeah. Even in my lifetime, it still amazes me. How far the technology has come by leaps and bounds. That almost anybody, if you have that drive, you have that determination, and you have that training, you still need that training to do it the right way. But you can make a movie. You can be part of the film industry. One of those avenues of getting training is the Georgia Film Academy. And I know you have a big part in that, correct?
I helped out in the very beginning some with it. Yeah, I mean, I've known them all for a long time, and the governor recently appointed me to chair the Georgia Film Commission, so I see them all to meetings there, sure, and out at Pinewood in Atlanta.
And I know SCAD does some very wonderful things.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Yeah, they revitalize the city in a lot of ways. That's also another way. You know, the students coming up from there, those are our feature filmmakers.
Sure.
You know, along with GFA and other avenues. And
no, a number of our staffers are SCAD students, and the film majors. I've gone to their sets, and it's amazing. I mean, it's like any professional set. It's great. They did a great job.
I've been on a few myself, and sometimes you can tell when they're just, you know, they're trying. Everybody has a different level of understanding. And I've been on ones on all ends of the spectrum too. When I was in GFA, I got to intern on Galveston that was just released to theaters, and I just remember. I think my comments at the time were mind blown.
Oh.
Like every day, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so incredibly exciting!" And there are so many different departments, so many different professions within the film industry for anyone. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, yeah. You know, if you're into grip and electric, if you're into sound,
wardrobe,
yeah, hair and makeup, etc.
Camera.
Oh yeah. I'm partial, of course, to
sound.
To sound. Being a sound mixer, and with that in mind, I wanted to mention that you were actually a boomer in Scalpel in 1977. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You kind of got wrangled into it?
Well, no, what happened is this. When I initially went to Atlanta, there's a fellow named Sandy Fuller who was doing documentaries. And Sandy's background was sound, although he's a shooter too. He did a lot of work with Geographic. Anyway, he taught me, back when we had quarter-inch tape and Nagras back in those days, and he taught me how to run a Nagra initially. So I was rolling sound for him on documentary. Then this movie, it became Scalpel. False Face was the original name of it, came along. And who's the production manager? Lester Berman was production manager, who's a former Key Grip. Anyway, Lester was hiring local crew. And those of us in Atlanta back in those days, a group of us were really all starting out. We didn't know much. We were just learning every aspect of filmmaking. The unions weren't as concerned about categories and about minimum staffing and all as they are normally, because we were learning, and needed a boom operator. So because I'd rolled sound, I became a boom operator, and as you know, I mean, it's a very tiring job. Oh, yes. I remember we were filming in home in Monticello, and back then we would shoot 6-day weeks and half-hour lunches. And my half-hour lunch, which usually is about 40 minutes, I would literally sneak upstairs to a bedroom and get between two twin beds and sleep for 20 minutes. I was so beat. So I'd get back down and hold that microphone again. And a fellow that was teaching me, because he knew I didn't know, and Matthews was his last name, but he took pity upon me and taught me a lot.
Did he?
Yeah.
So you've worked in the industry for a long time, and you work with many artistically and commercially successful films. What keeps you motivated? What makes you say, "I'm so excited about that next film"? Story.
Yeah. Especially now. I mean, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I would get amped up about travel too. Mm-hmm. Now, okay, is it great to go? Yeah, it's okay, but story now. And what interests me are, in fact, the books I've optioned are character-driven, and one of them, I mean, it's been a while since I've had it, but now There's a director attached. I'm meeting with him in LA in a couple of weeks, and we'll start attaching cast.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about a few more things, but we've got to take one of those required breaks.
Okay.
So we're going to be back in just a moment with the wonderful Stratton Leopold, Savannah film icon.
Oh my God!
An ice cream man, ice cream person. I don't know what it would be called. We'll be right back, y'all. So hang there, hang on.
Saturdays at 3 p.m. to Muses, Memoirs, and More. Your show about
We're off right now.
Oh, how much time do we have? How much time do we have on this break?
We've got
Savannah, Georgia, 107.5
a minute.
Okay, I'll read what's here.
Oh, okay.
We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
Just people watching. I don't see any
People watch-
questions.
It's okay.
RUULP, Savannah,
And
Georgia,
Cheryl, of course.
107.5
Oh, Cheryl's watching.
Yeah.
WRUU.org.
Patrick Roper.
He's an actor. He's a local actor.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
With the,
WRUU 107.5 FM is a new and different listener-supported and all-volunteer community
30
radio
seconds.
station for Savannah. Our diverse broadcast and web programming is supported by generous listeners who value our passion and spunk. We are independent of other media and receive no government or large corporate support. People like you are the largest and most important source of our funding. Go to WRUU.org to find out how you can make a one-time or monthly contribution. Thank you.
And welcome back. We are here on Savannah on Film with my very special guest, Stratton Leopold. Thank you, sir, for joining us here, and to everybody watching there on Facebook. Appreciate you and the following we've got there. There's never going to be enough time to all the questions that I prepared that I want to ask you, so I'm trying to skim to the cream of the crop.
I'll talk faster.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're doing great, sir. Let's see. When I'm thinking of film, I think of the great contributions. I think of directors and producers and what it takes. Can you just tell us a little bit what it's like to be executive producer? What were some of the challenges in general that you've faced?
It depends if it's a studio picture or independent picture, really. On a studio picture, especially on a larger picture, you have the upper brass of a studio on you constantly because you're spending so much money, and their jobs are on the line. So there's a lot of concern there, a lot of pressure from them from a financial side. My job there is, it's interesting because you straddle a fence. Creatively, you're working with a director, protecting a vision, and yet, from a dollar standpoint, you have to create what the studio expects in terms of a finished film product. I hate to use the word product, a finished film. And yet you have a budget to work within. On the independent side, then of course, then you have to go out and raise the money. And then usually there's compromise involved there because you have to think, okay, how can we do this for a little bit less, or what can we do? So there are challenges on both sides. One is more of a financial, the other is political.
Oh, that's like a lot of things in life, right?
Yeah.
So, at what point in your career did you get to the point where you could really start choosing your own projects that you invested your time in?
Oh, goodness, probably about 15, 20 years in. Because for the first number of years I was learning, like when I was a boom operator, I would do things. I would grip. Whatever I would do just to learn, because I didn't have a background in this. My initial exposure to film was probably my sophomore year at Benedictine. Robert Mitchum was filming here on, I think, Cape Fear, and I've forgotten what day it was. We were in full dress whites, the uniforms, and he was coming out of the Armstrong house, walking out across into the park. That was a shot. And we were all watching, and a lot of the cadets were getting in to sign the white caps that we had on. And I had no idea what this was about. I just saw a bunch of very large lights that were smoking. I didn't know what it was. They were arcs, of course. Now I know what they are now, but I had no idea then. That was probably my first exposure to anything involving film, and that was on Gaston Street. And I was really good in the sciences. That's why I was being pushed a little bit by my mother's parents, especially. And I was pre-med in school, and I took a turn from that, of course. But anyway, that was my first exposure. When I lived in New York for a few years, and met an actress, and with her then became really in a big way interested. And that's how I started going and went from there. I started devising 5-year plans for myself, which became a second 5-year and a third 5-year plan, thinking, okay, I'll give it 5 years. But when you're in your early 20s, I mean, 5 years is nothing, so you just keep doing it. And you get passionate about it, you dedicate yourself to it,
Mm-hmm.
you make allowances, you make compromises in your life. You say, okay, I'm not going to do A, I'm going to do B.
And you have to have, if you've got a significant other, someone that understands those sacrifices.
Yes, yeah.
You know, willing to kind of roll
Yeah.
with the punches, because
Yeah.
it's not easy on a relationship.
I've had an engagement ring thrown at me. That was Carol, God rest her soul, Carol in New York, when I decided to go to Atlanta, and she didn't want to come. But yeah, so you do make compromises.
You do. Now, switching the subject a little bit, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. And knowing that you've worked with Marvel films, I'm a big geek, as they would call it. You know, I love the Marvel films. There's not one that I don't like. And of course, with the passing of Stan the man, you know, Stan Lee.
Never met him. Wish I had. Never,
my gosh.
Never met him.
Never met him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Yeah.
He was at one of the Comic Cons. I've forgotten what year, but I was with JJ. We were doing something else, and I didn't meet him.
It's so cool to say, yeah, I was just hanging with JJ.
Oh,
no, it's cool. Yeah. A man who had the power of Star Wars and Star Trek universes in his own hand. It's an amazing power. But with Stan Lee, he touched so many people's lives. I know you were involved with...
And continues to.
Yeah,
I mean,
continues to. He will. He will.
For a
He's
long
going to go down
as
one of the greats, I think. And these little crazy little comic books, you know, that they infused... He was way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
I mean, culturally and dealing with issues our society is still dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
He put them in the comics and made good, very good, excellent, you know, reading material, and a lot of fun growing up, reading all that and part of the movies. Now, you were on Captain America: The First Avenger, and what was that like, being on set? And that was kind of the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It was great. I mean, Kevin Feige was around a lot. Kevin is
yes, he's probably the heart and soul of it all. Right?
He is. No, it was fine. It was great.
It was great.
Shot it in England.
Okay. And is that Pinewood over there in England? Don't they have a...
we shot at several studios there.
Studios,
But I've shot at Pinewood, England, quite a few times.
Cool. What else have you shot there? Can you say?
Oh my goodness!
Probably a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot. I'm trying to think back.
I mean, your list on IMDb is just incredible for what you've done, and that's probably not everything listed there that you've done. I always ask my guests where do they see themselves in 5 years. Can you tell us anything about what you're working on or what's coming up?
Sure.
Next?
Well, next, a book co-written by David Perlmutt, whose parents are from Savannah. He lives up in Charlotte. The book was published by Naval Institute Press. It's entitled Charlie Two Shoes and the Marines of Love Company. It's a memoir of some U.S. Marines who, at the close of World War II, having fought their way through the Pacific, are sent to China, to a village about 30 kilometers from Qingdao, for a couple of reasons. One, there were 630,000 Japanese troops in China who would not surrender to the Chinese. The Chinese would have decimated them for what they did to them. They repatriated the Japanese troops, and Mao Zedong was fighting for the country. the story, and I can go through, but it'll take a little while. Anyway, the story is a story of absolute loyalty and friendship. This group of Marines and this Chinese kid, who was Charlie, they couldn't pronounce his name, they called him Charlie. He was 11 at the time. He was very industrious. He would gather firewood to barter for K rations to feed his parents. They took a liking to him. They sent him to school. There was a convent in Qingdao. He became a little Marine, basically. The Marines had to leave in 1949 when Mao won. Never forgot him. They came back, started their own families. Charlie would not. The Communist Party tried to get him to become a member in propaganda. He would not do it. They threw him in prison, hard labor, then house arrest. He would never give up his buddies. Marines never forgot him. One day, finally, his buddies in China told Charlie that a U.S. president was there. So he starts praying to remember the addresses, writing letters. I'm talking fast. There's a lot to say here. Anyway, one letter gets through to a Marine in North Carolina. Now you have this group of middle-aged men. We're up to 1981 now,
Right.
all going to Washington to the newly opened Chinese embassy there to get a visa for him. They finally get a visa. Charlie gets over here. Huge, tearful reunion. They haven't seen him in 40 years. They thought he was dead, but they never gave it up and never gave up the flame of hope. Now the Americans dig in and say he can't stay. He doesn't have any relatives here. An INS agent, Nick Galifianakis, was involved. It's Zach's uncle.
Okay.
Was involved. They got it to President Reagan, who made it happen. Charlie is here, an amazing patriot with his family. Right now, a man named Roland Joffe is set to direct it. Roland got his awards earlier. 3 Academy Awards on The Killing Fields.
Mm-hmm.
He was nominated Best Director on The Mission. De Niro was in that, but the Jesuit priests in the jungle. He did Fat Man and Little Boy. He's written a killer script, so that's the next project.
Wow.
The other one.
This sounds so interesting.
No, it's
hanging on your every word here.
Well, no, I gave you the very short version of it. The other book that I've optioned, actually I own it now, is entitled "In the Sanctuary of Outcasts," a New York Times bestseller nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
That is a story of redemption. A man named Neil White, graduated Ole Miss at Oxford 25 years ago, was driven to start a magazine there. Raised money, type A personality, started a magazine, lost everything. Went to Biloxi, did the same thing, raised money, successful. Ultimately, bought New Orleans Magazine, had 4 magazines on the Gulf Coast, being recognized nationally as this amazing young publisher. The receivables were slow coming in. So he started kiting checks, and your listeners who are not over 30 won't know what that means. What that is you would write checks on Bank A, make a deposit from Bank B to Bank A to cover them, and make a deposit from Bank C to Bank B to cover them. But there's no money.
Right.
And you hope that the money comes in time to cover it. Well, it didn't. So that's the preamble. Here's the story. Mm-hmm. Neil was sentenced. He got arrested for bank fraud. He was sentenced to a minimum security federal prison in Carville, Louisiana, which was at the time 1/2 federal prison. The other half still is the United States leper colony.
We still have that?
Yeah. No, there are 3
Oh.
patients now. There were 130 when he was there. Wow. And the story is one of redemption, of how these literally discarded people changed his life. I've been there with Neil. I mean, he's a great guy. I didn't know him before. I know him now. Right. But the story is redemption. These are the kinds of stories now that excite me.
Good. Yeah. Stories with a lot of depth. And that both of those stories, I mean, having someone looking out for you, somebody that, it's kind of like
having an impact in your life.
It had an impact in your life, and totally changed your life.
I mean, action you can do. I mean, I can do action, obviously. We can film action. But, in fact, in Roland's script on Charlie Two Shoes, we do have some action. We do have the end of the war a little bit, so we have a little bit of action in it.
I wanted to present you with something here, and these are just some photos I wanted to show you.
Okay.
And this is probably going to make you laugh a little bit, but This is an old photo here of my mom that we found. She worked at Leopold's there.
Helen.
Yeah, Helen Marie Davis.
Helen, oh gosh,
she,
yes.
She was so young in that picture and so
Oh
beautiful.
my God.
And she was a waitress. Now I know the gentlemen were called soda jerks, right?
Yes.
And what were the ladies called?
We see, we had curb girls too, but
Curb girls.
Helen Marie Davis worked inside.
Okay.
But it's a photograph we have from the 30s. So we have a lot of old stuff.
Yeah.
There used to be curb boys.
Okay.
But when the Second World War broke out, they became curb girls because the curb boys all went away. Oh my! I remember her so well.
Yeah,
that's a great picture.
And
that's on the corner there, right on the corner.
And here's a picture of my dad here too.
Oh yeah.
My mom always said he looked like Rock Hudson back then, and for anybody who doesn't know, he was a dashing, debonair gentleman.
I remember your dad and your uncle so well.
I miss them all dearly.
Yeah.
But
wonderful Geechee accents.
Thank you. Yes, they totally had the Geechee accent. Hanging around with Johnny Mercer was 10 years my dad's senior, and
That's
they'd
great.
hang out, and so it's so funny. Yeah, I just showing my dad there, showing the picture of my mom. But
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. That's really taking it back, and I can do a better picture of that later. I can get you a better one.
I can't tell the focus.
But what I wanted to tell you in showing you that is that had it not been for Leopold's ice cream, that's where my mom was working.
Mhm.
My dad came in there one day, and that's where he met my mom at
Oh, my
Leopold's. And they were married 51 years when he passed. And in a way, your family's responsible for me being here on this earth and my siblings.
Write this up for me.
Sure.
I'd like to put it in a compendium of stories.
Okay, well, I just wanted you to know that. I want to say thank you to your family for your business and for what you've done, not just for Savannah, but it impacts me too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here right now. Wow. So, yeah, I was just thinking about them.
I used to ask my mom because my brother and sister were 17 and 15 years older than I am.
Well, we're right here off of Troop Square, here at the studio at WRUU, and I remember one story my dad told me when all the boys were playing football, and I never knew if his stories were totally true but I had no reason to believe they weren't. But he was telling me one where he said that they were playing football and there was a lady on the second store and they kicked the football and knocked a soup pot off of the stove there. So. My dad had wonderful stories,
stories, the characters back in those days were amazing.
Yes, people were wonderful.
Yeah.
My mom served many a mayor, many a councilman that came in there, and that's just when I call you an icon. There's a reason you're an icon. You're your business and your philanthropy and what you've done.
It's
for
it's the ones that came before me. It's not really just me. It's
that's true. We all are just building on other people's shoulders, but it's still a good thing. And wow, so that's kind of an emotional moment for me in the show here to talk about
that is wonderful.
And I wish I could talk to you all day, but we're running a little low on time. So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. Why are you so passionate about ice cream?
I love it. It tastes good. I love it. It's good for you because it's good protein.
There we go. It's the healthy stuff.
Yeah.
It's not about sugar.
It has sugar in it, but
it's a lot more healthier.
It's comfort food for me. Yeah. I eat a lot of ice cream.
In this world, I think I could eat a ton of ice cream with everything going on. But
if I hadn't walked, I'd have brought some, but it melted.
I would have came and picked you up. I didn't know you were walking, but that's what's wonderful about Savannah. Savannah's this big, small city, and it's still.
I agree.
When my parents were alive and not roaming the streets, but it was a simpler time, and Savannah's still a beautiful, wonderful city.
Agreed.
For generations to come, and as I say that, we have to close the interview. I just want to ask you one last thing. Is there a couple things? Is there anything else you'd like to share that we haven't touched on?
I just everyone, support filming in Savannah. I know people get upset. There's dirt in the street for a period picture and all, but it really does impact the entire city. It impacts the hotels, the bars, the restaurants, the dry cleaners, the hardware store. There are benefits for everyone. People are extras in the movies, have parts in the films. So we used to call it, when we started out, a smokeless industry, which it is, because the credits that the state of Georgia and that CETA and the Savannah Film Office give are to entice filmmaking. And the pictures, I remember when I was doing Wolfman, I think it was, in London, we were spending massive amounts of money per day, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per day. Right. And when you go into a community, especially a smaller one, there's an impact. The example I use is I was doing a picture in Vancouver. And during the time I was there were 4 other movies in the $100 million budget range, mine being the 5th. And I had the accounting staff calculate what did we leave there. We figured about 35% of the money was left. Right. Now, of that, what did the province and the federal government of Canada have to give us in givebacks to keep us there? And we did all the figuring, and we figured that, I'm trying to remember the numbers, about the 35 million circulated within the community. And of that, I think it was like 10 or 15 million was in the clear. So you have that much money in a medium-sized city circulating in. I mean, first of all, it starts at 35% of 500 million is it's almost half of $150 million. So I mean, it's a lot of money floating around, and right. It's good for a community from a financial standpoint. It creates industries like tours where films were shot, what have you.
Where can people find you? Obviously, Leopold.
Ice behind the counter.
Behind the counter, serving up some...
Or at least in front of the counter sometimes. Bussing tables, hard to say.
And I love that you're still so much part of the...
It's fun. I mean, why not?
Yeah. If I could serve ice cream, that would
it's
be
fun.
I mean, so, Stratton, you're certainly welcome back anytime,
okay.
sir.
Let's do it again sometime.
It's been a pleasure having you. I want to thank everybody who's
Bye, everyone.
out there listening and watching on Facebook. And just remind everybody, thank you for joining me today on Savannah on Film. Savannah on Film wants to feature film professionals at different levels. So if you're listening and you're in the industry, I'd love to talk to you too. Our email is savannaonfilm@gmail.com. We're also here on Facebook, where you can check out these Facebook Live versions of the show. And later on, you'll see this interview put together nicely with some wonderful pictures, hopefully, and on YouTube there, Savannah on Film. And we're also on Twitter. You can follow us there, all those social media places. And I just want to remind you that Savannah on Film is the voice for the Savannah film community.
You have been listening to another episode of Savannah on Film, where we give a voice to the Savannah film community. Please like our Facebook page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And I'll cut that Facebook off.
Right here, I'll have it.
Save this. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Savannah on Film.